Hey everybody, this is Pete from Owner Builders Unite, and today we're over at our friend and neighbor Thomas's earthship build doing some bottle walls. In prepping for the bottles, you have to porcupine between the stud bays with screws or nails. In this case, we used screws, wood screws, standard, just that way that the cement and the bottles actually have something to grab onto between the bays. Another prep thing to do is to lay out the bottles in the sense of a design and a space that makes sense to what area you're working with. With these bottles, we obviously had a specific size. Each bay was different, so we kind of went ahead and measured. Depends if you're 16 inches on center or 24 inches on center, or where your mid-span block, if you will, would be for the next bottle course to go up. One thing about this is you know exactly how many bottles you need, and also you can take a picture of the design or the layout in case you don't get it all in one day done and you have to do it kind of by sections, which is okay too. You can kind of see Thomas prepped a lot of stuff. Next, we're starting to lay out the bottles in the first bed of mortar that the bottles will go and be received into. A good rule of thumb is to have about 1 or 2 fingers between each bottle. Obviously, if you're able to follow the layout and the design that you put out before, you kind of have an idea of what bottle needs to go where. The best thing about this is it's all random, and you can kind of make it what you will. The one thing I will say as it's being laid out is if you do have a clear on one side and a color on the other side, it's good to have the clear facing outside and then the color being on the inside. That way you can have the most light that comes in and it can illuminate the bottles during whatever time of day that the sun's hidden. In this case, this is his entryway to his house, his front door, if you will, and it's on the west side. So really in the afternoon, you can see these bottles from the inside just really get beautiful. Another thing that we're doing here, and what is a crucial thing to have a partner with, at least one other person, is to kind of clean the bottles as you go. You can see here Thomas is cleaning and sponging the faces of the bottle. The cement is always going to be kind of wet as you're working it, so you don't want to move it around too much. After you set the bottle, you kind of want to forget about it, but he's coming back and just making sure that the cement doesn't harden up on that. It's really hard to get the cement off if you wait too long. Also, a consideration is to see how big the space is that you're working. There was 3 of us here this day. I was kind of helping Luke out with bringing the bottles and also setting them. He's using that straight edge because after you get so high, sometimes the bottles want to lean out or lean in, and you definitely want them to be plumb just with the wall. So you can use a straight edge, you can use a level, anything really that just keeps it plumb. Now we're at the inside looking out towards the west. I'm laying out the bottles because I keep on referencing the template that's right behind with the bottles laid out, and Luke is laying down the mortar and embedding it in between on the other side. It's a tight space too. You can see the scaffolding and the ladder, so just keep in mind if you are kind of working, you have to be able to work around each other. This is an example of kind of what it looks like. You're going to get mud and cement on the face of the bottles as you're laying it, but again, that's why it's kind of important to have somebody coming behind you and wiping out the face. You can see Thomas already got the bottom ones on that and the ones that are shining through more than others. Overall, this time lapse was probably about, I want to say 4 hours, 5 hours worth of work between the 3 of us. So it is a pretty time consuming thing. That's not to mention all the time Thomas prepped and got the bottles cut and taped and cleaned. It's definitely a labor of love. So again, when you're using repurposed building materials or trying to, use free materials like bottles or tires inside of a build, whether it's an earthship or a straw bale or a scuria bag house, it's pretty labor intensive. Even though you're saving on materials, it's something that just kind of adds up to your time. So if you have a lot of friends and people that want to help out and neighbors like we do here in Crestone that are like-minded folks doing this, it's a fun time. We had a whole bunch of music playing in the background while we were doing it, so everybody's having fun. And it's an easy thing to learn if you haven't done it before. I think this was Luke's first time doing it, where me and Thomas have both done it before on my house, Matt and Goldie's houses, other neighbors, things like that, parts on his house as well. The last bit of information that I'll say that's kind of important is to make sure not only that you're cleaning the faces of the bottles, but eventually you do start to sponge in between the bottles. You can kind of see Thomas up on the ladder working the top part that's new. Again, you don't really want to mess or play with cement that's not really set up, or the mud that's not really set. You can move too much and make more of a mess. You don't want to sponge it too soon, but after about an hour or so of the stuff that you already worked, you definitely want to make sure you can get a sponge on that stuff as well. That way that your finish is nice, it's smooth, it's not rough. I did make a mistake on my house on one of my bottle bays that I've never done before that I kind of didn't really sponge it right, and it set up and it's a little bit too rough. I'll probably go back and do a finish coat on it because it is a little bit rougher, and just make it nice and smooth. I know Goldie did a video on our channel of their finish coat and applying plaster to a bottle wall on their shower, but on this one for Thomas's entryway, we just wanted to sponge it and kind of have it all nice and finished in the final coat. And here is an example of what it looks like after it's all done. This was a couple weeks later. Thomas went ahead and got the rest of the base filled with some other friends and neighbors. So it turned out great. I love all the different colors. Again, have a different design for each bay. It's very custom and very unique. Certainly a labor of love. Thanks for watching. Owner Builders Unite.